ladies and gentlemen, give a huge virtual round of applause to Jessica Klatt. Jessica, thanks so much for joining the AGC Talks event. I'm super excited to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am Jessica Klatt, and today I'm going to be presenting Wired for Growth. This is all about building engagement in your bottom line through human wiring. And when I'm talking about human wiring, I'm talking about the human side of business, and I'm also referring to a tool that I use to help businesses grow. And I'll talk about that a little bit more today too. So in this first slide, I am going to be talking about the 3 pillars that every business needs to build on. These are the foundational pieces. It's leadership, culture, and communication. So knowing this and understanding this is really key in getting those next level results. Starting with leadership, every single thing in your business starts from the top down. And the actual definition of leadership is leading a group of people or an individual or an organization. So that means you as a leader, you have to go first. I always tell my clients, when you're questioning your own leadership skills, go right back to be the leader that you would want. That's the best place to start. The second part in leadership is creating more leaders within your business. So you really need to design a strategy to do just that. The second pillar, straight down from leadership, is culture. If you're a strong leader, you're going to be the one to set the culture in your business. This can be a good thing or this can be a bad thing. If you're not a strong leader, somebody else in your organization is going to determine the culture. This is really important to know because your culture is so important. It's not just what's written on a piece of paper. You want to make sure that your culture is the one you want. So ask yourself that question. What is my culture and is it the one that I want? Get really honest with yourself. And then the last part is, does it serve both your customer and your staff? The third pillar is communication. Communication is so important in any relationship, but when you're talking about creating a successful small business, it's really the biggest piece overall. So Jim Rohn said it best. He said, if you just communicate, you can get by. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. So to become a skillful communicator does not mean that you're born with the gift of gab. I always say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to use them accordingly. Great communicators are great listeners. They also know what to communicate, when to communicate, and how they communicate. And then they learn those same things about the people within their organization. So the reason I tell you about these 3 pillars is because if your business isn't built on a solid foundation, everything that happens as you grow becomes more challenging. So the 3 pillars are very important. But in the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about identifying the 3 different types of individuals that work within your business, because this is also important. So I'm going to tell you a story about Sally. She's in the pictures that you can see right here. And we're going to talk about how she was engaged at one point within her workplace, disengaged, and then actively disengaged. Think about these people as I'm going through the description that you've met in your work career, in your own business. Maybe you've been this person at one point in time. So let's go ahead and meet Sally. Sally applied for a position at XYZ company. She interviewed and her resume was amazing. They hired her onto the team, gave her a great benefits package and a great compensation. Right out of the gate, she started off awesome. She was showing up on time. She was really embracing all the different growth opportunities presented to her. She was forming relationships with other team members, and she was sharing innovative ideas with her leadership team. This is an example of what we call an engaged employee, and they make up about 35% of the workforce, according to a 2018 Gallup poll. So they're not the majority, but they're the ones that you really want to keep. These are the employees that are described as fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about their work. They take positive action to further the organization's reputation and interests. This is the employee everybody wants. About 6 months in, peers began noticing that Sally was calling in sick more often. She wasn't showing up on time, and she just seemed apathetic overall. She'd even been overheard telling fellow teammates, "That's not my job." She wasn't very active during team meetings, and management started to wonder what happened to the Sally that we hired. This is not the same person. What I just described is a disengaged employee, and they make roughly 52% of the workforce. So they're the average. Now, if you're thinking about this from your history with your careers, or maybe in your current workplace or your business, you probably can easily identify the disengaged employee because they're everywhere. They have one foot out the door. That leads us to the next category, which is our actively disengaged. So at 18 months post-hire, Sally quits her job. She had been written up several times, and one day she just decided, you know what, I'm done. And she didn't show up. And then she took to social media to blast the company online. This is what an actively disengaged employee does. And they make up a much smaller portion of the workforce at 13%, but they are the most dangerous. These employees undermine everything their engaged coworkers do, and they're actively acting out their unhappiness. I always say 80% of the problems are caused by 20% of the people, and we don't often hire that person. So we have to start to wonder what happens when somebody goes from being engaged to completely disengaged within their workplace. So we have to go back to what are the pillars? Communication, leadership, culture. Usually something is missing at that level. And the next slide, I want to introduce the reason why I want to talk about this today. When we are talking about disengaged people and the pillars of a business, what we're really trying to translate is the cost. What does it cost to have pillars that aren't built structurally, to have people that are getting disengaged and leaving the workplace? So turnover has a direct correlation to your bottom line. On average, 50% of employees will turn over within 18 months of hire. That's staggering, and that's really, really scary for a small business. So on the next slide, there is a formula that I use and I introduce to leaders so that they can examine what happens to their bottom line when people leave. This formula is determined by different factors. So we have to look at the costs of hiring, onboarding, and unfilled time. And then we multiply that by the number of employees in your business. And then we multiply that by your annual turnover percentage. All the figures I used in this example are based on national averages from Forbes and salary.com. But you can use this formula within your own business. So when we think about the cost of hiring, we have to think about job ads. Are we using recruiters? There's lots of different costs that go in depending on the business. Onboarding, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Unfilled time, it takes on average 42 to 52 days to hire a new employee. So we have to look at how these numbers really contribute to losing money on your bottom line. And then we also have to look at the cost of what a disengaged employee costs you in business. Customers, and we don't pull forward the profit. So as scary as all this is, there are some things that you can do today to help move the odds into your favor. On this next slide here are just a few things that I'd like you to be able to take with you today and apply. Things that I tell people right out of the gate are pay attention to what people are saying within your organization. I know that a lot of times we think it's just complaining and we might dismiss it, and there's people that might do more complaining than others. But this is very valuable information. If you're hearing repeating themes, that's really important. Don't discount that. Another big thing that we tend to overlook is when we have somebody who's speaking a lot and they're telling you a lot and then they suddenly go quiet. That is typically somebody who's moving from an engaged employee to a disengaged employee. Apathy and just filling a seat is definitely a red flag. So pay attention to what people are saying. Ask your staff the golden question. Would you refer a friend or a family member to work for this business, for this company? That is such a huge revelation. If there's a long, awkward pause, think about that. Why? Ask them why. If they're not going to be honest with you because there isn't a lot of leadership structure there, if you can do this anonymously, people will tell you things that you absolutely can use to better the organization from that foundational place. I use human wiring. I love Acumax Index. This is a tool that you can also get within your own organization. This measures autonomy, communication, patience, detail, decision-making, and this is my multi-purpose tool. We use this for hiring and retention, for team building. It tells us the innate wiring of an individual. So this really helps move the marker more towards your favor when it comes to engagement and retention. 360 peer reviews. These are awesome. If you can administer them through a third party, it's even better. Get the information where your employee feels protected, and they will tell you things that you can use right away to help fix the cracks in your business. And once you do that, people feel heard. So you're boosting their engagement as well. I can't stress this enough. Regular employee reviews. It can feel very daunting, but if you have a structure to giving employees a path to success and a path to receiving quality feedback, you're going to boost their engagement and show leadership at the same time. This is meant to be a motivational tool, not a tool for disciplinary action. It's meant to simply move people towards becoming better and growing within their position. Hiring assistants. This is another very big deal. We tend to hire based on emotion and resumes versus are they really equipped for the position? So if you can get help from a professional to hire right, you're going to increase your likelihood of retaining employees long-term. And then the last thing I want to say before I exit this talk is there's a series of 3 questions as an employer, as a leader, that you can ask in order to help support those 3 pillars. And so what I tell leaders is when they're experiencing issues within their organization, the best place to start is with these 3 questions asked in this specific order. When there is an issue or a problem, the first question you should ask is to yourself as a leader. What can I do better? Where did I go wrong in this situation? And what can I do in the future to prevent this from happening? So hold yourself accountable. After you ask yourself that question, turn to your staff and have them review you as well. Ask your staff, what is my responsibility? What can I do better next time? And only after you ask those 2 questions do you turn to your staff and ask them, next time, what can you do better? How can you contribute to changing this for the future? By doing that in that order, you're going to support solid leadership. You're showing that you can go first. You're going to support the culture of accountability. Every single business and every single person should learn how to become accountable. So you're teaching your staff that you're accountable, and then they learn how to be accountable going forward. And you're also supporting skillful communication. It's so important to open up those doors. And when employees know they can trust you as a leader, they're going to be better and more transparent in their communications with you. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you tuning in. And I hope that there's something in here that you can take and use right now. Thanks.